All right, everyone, welcome back to In Our Humble Opinion. My name is Jacob Cook. I co-host this podcast with my best friend, Brantley Weatherford. Brantley, how are you?
Jacob, doing well. It's a nice sunny day here in the end of June, but I'm doing well.
Yeah, it's getting really hot here in the southeast. I hope it cools off soon because it just makes going outdoors, even for a short amount of time, unbearable. I don't know how it's been further down south, but up here it's been pretty rough.
Well, I mean, you grew up down here. You know how it is. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
or
I mean,
it's pretty much the same, except it's a slightly cooler up where you are.
by slightly, you mean like half a degree.
Yeah, you don't sweat the minute you walk out, but about a minute in, you start sweating. Here, you open the door and
Yeah.
you know,
No, that's
it's
very true.
ridiculous.
Which means it is the heart of summer, which is also the time we will be celebrating Independence Day next Tuesday, as of the time of this recording. So we're excited about that. We hope you can celebrate our nation's birthday with friends and family. It's always fun to gather around, do a barbecue or something like that. If you're in the United States anyway, it's just
Yeah,
one of those holidays that everybody kind of looks forward to. So looking forward to that. Hope
yeah.
you have something planned. I know you do, and I'm sorry we can't make it, but
Oh no, it's fine. It was just an idea. We're trying to figure out what we're gonna do, but yeah. I mean, since I'm a teacher, I don't work in the summer anyway. But when I did have a job, 4th of July, always one of those days. I was like, yes, I'm off. Celebrate this nation's birth, and it's always fun. So I'm sure you're looking forward to it.
yeah, no, I am. It'll be a nice little break. I think that Wednesday off as well, so it'll be nice. But have you seen the videos? Just speaking of Independence Day, of I think it was Jay Leno or something like that, years and years and years ago. He would go on the street and ask people questions, and some
Uh,
of those questions were like, "Who did the United States get their independence from?" And a lot of people would be stumped by those questions, and it was kind of embarrassing, but very funny.
yeah, I've seen Jay Leno do that. There's a guy on YouTube. A lot of people probably won't like him, but he's more of a conservative type
I know who you're
guy on
talking about,
YouTube.
Mark
Mark
Dice.
Mark Dice, yeah, he goes to the beaches in California, and he asks people the most basic questions, and I'm thinking, but how? Like, how do you not know this? It baffles me. It truly does.
I have to think that they're selectively edited, but at the same time,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I mean, still, you get 7 or 8 people in those videos. I mean, that's 7 or 8 people that are actually, well, just that ignorant, I guess. Not to sound too harsh, but
it's surprising because one of my aunts is from Belgium. My uncle, yeah, I mean, he grew up in America. He's I mean, he went to Alabama, so he's full American. I don't know how he met her. Anyway, she had to do like this test. What's that? Citizenship test for
mhm.
America, and all this history that basic people in America don't know. She knows all of it. And I'm just like, if she knows it, y'all should definitely know it. She grew up in Belgium. Come
Yeah,
on,
yeah,
it blows my mind. How do you not
yeah.
know this?
And it's not just lack of history, but currently we're just seeing a huge lack of patriotism as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Well,
I'm disappointed to see that as well because it just seems like it's permeated our pop culture and it's the cool thing to kind of hate on the United States, which is unfortunate. And I don't really know where that's coming from, but
I have an idea, but I won't go into it. It is a shame though
yeah,
because you're given all these freedoms, and you are given a lot of these freedoms. You might say, "Oh no, we're not," da 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 da. But there is a lot of stuff that we are free to do that in other nations you're not. And you take that freedom, and then you just hate on the nation that gives it to you. To me, it's counterintuitive, but you have that freedom to do that. That's your choice. It's whatever. But I don't understand it.
I worked with someone who migrated here from Venezuela. He was a great guy, loved being around him. He was very funny. And he told us just how much he loved being in this country. Like that was something that he continually would tell us. He's like, I'm so thankful to be in America.
Yeah.
Or if we were having a bad day, he would literally walk up to us and be like, "Man, cheer up! You're in America."
I mean, we've taken it for granted. We do.
And I would be, I mean, I it would just put a huge smile on my face because, like, his goal, he wasn't a full citizen yet. He was working to getting his citizenship.
Yeah.
And I would always tell him, his name was Roberto, but we called him Bobby.
Yeah.
I would tell him, I'm like, Bobby, you are more of an American than 90% of the people that I come into contact with.
It's true. It's a shame, man. It really is.
Because he would tell me, you have no idea what I left behind and how much better it is here. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
I can't describe it to you.
You got people that were fleeing Cuba on like life rafts to get to the tip of Florida, for freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Something's clearly different between America and these other nations that are supposedly better. One thing that really irritates me about nowadays in American history, I love reading about American history. Yeah, we have our bad stuff. Every nation does. And that doesn't mean, just because I'm patriot, doesn't mean that I agree with all that. But I remember being in a class at Auburn, and we were talking about, what was it? Something along the lines of the founding of America. And somebody's like, raise your hands, like, oh, I just don't. One reason I don't like America is because of all the killing and genocide and war and all that stuff we did. Which I agree, it's terrible stuff. Don't get me wrong. But I raised my hand and I said, but doesn't every great nation in history have that? And the professor's like, that's a good point. I mean, look at all the Romans, Britain, Israel, all those. Every nation doesn't make it right. Does not make it right. I'm not saying it's right. But to hold it against just America, you need to hold it against all these other nations that you praise all the time. Because, the people that don't praise America always are praising other nations. Like, look at their history. If you think France is super great because of their health care, well, look at their history. Look what they've done. It's just hypocritical to me.
Oh, I agree. I think that it's very easy to ignore the positive side of our history or any country's history and just try to focus on the negative.
Yeah.
I mean, psychologically speaking, there's a lot of data and conclusions and studies that have been made based on people's tendencies to migrate more towards a negative mindset than a positive mindset. So whenever you have something that's blatantly, abominable in our history, then it's easy to focus on that. But I don't know. I tend to agree with you.
Well, I guess if you're being told all the time, because I mean, let's be honest. Thank God I'm sorry. Little Bob too. Let's be honest. Culture now, society now pushes you to look for the negative in all things and find something that you could point at and hold fault against for something to prove your point that something's. I don't know. I mean, it's like people intentionally search for the negative and stuff, and then someone tries to defend like America, they say, well, look at all this. Da, 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 da. It's like, come on. There's other stuff here too. I mean, look at World War II. Look what we did there. But they won't point to that. Well, we just massacred millions of Japanese people with the bombs. Like,
oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but we're trying to win a war here, and they attacked us out of the blue, so I don't know. It's just something that happens nowadays.
I think it's pointless to have those debates because it happened. I mean,
yeah.
It's whether you agree with it or not. It's our history. It's what happened.
Yeah.
I think at the time, if you were there in 1945 when those decisions were being made, maybe you have a different opinion of the matter. I don't know, but
yeah. Well, I remember reading about it in history class and doing my own research because I love history, and just reading about how the American public was super excited the the war was finally over. Everybody was celebrating. So it seems to me they didn't care back then.
Yeah.
But that's another thing people will hold it.
Yeah, I mean, you're never gonna make everybody happy, no matter what you say. I mean,
Yeah.
or what you teach. There's always going to be somebody who is upset or offended about it. So, just
Yeah.
best to stick to the truth and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the 4th of July, Jacob, aside from being off work, being the summertime, I just love the whole patriotic atmosphere where it exists. And on top of that, TV stations are always playing good, and I know it's stupid, but they're always playing good movies like the Jaws marathon. They're playing Independence
I was
Day.
about to say, do they actually play Independence Day on Independence Day?
I believe they do. Yeah, they play a lot of. There's always good movies that they play on TV, and then you got
Well,
like
real quick, Brent, I've never seen that movie.
with Will Smith.
I think I've seen parts of it, but I've never seen it all the way through. I've heard it's bad.
I heard the new one's bad, and it's not great. I saw it, but the original's a classic, Jacob.
Well, then maybe they were speaking about the newer one.
Yeah, the new one's poo poo. I'll just admit that. But the old one is a classic. Absolutely, positively classic.
I have to check it out. It's about
You
like
need to.
alien invasion or something, right?
Yeah, the aliens coming to wipe out the entire world. And of course, the Americans on Independence Day save the world. it's it's a good movie. Back before Will Smith lost his mind. Or maybe he already lost it. I don't know. But the whole firework things. One of my favorite memories of Independence Day stems back to, oh boy, I'm 8 or 9 years old. I can't remember. But down in Panama City, when you come into Panama City, if you go the same way we do, when you come in on the right, there's a Burger King. You know
Yeah,
what I'm
when
talking
you
about?
yeah.
When you first enter, yeah, that Burger King. One of my favorite memories is my dad's like, "Hey, we're gonna go. You guys want to go eat at Burger King tonight?" And we were at Panama City. It was 4th of July. And I remember just sitting there, 4th of July at that Burger King, and we could see in the distance because there weren't as many buildings there, just fireworks going off left and right, and it was just a memorable experience. I was like, "Man, this is awesome. I love 4th of July." So that's a good memory for me.
I think Disney used to put on a pretty cool show. They may still. There's a lot of cool things you can see on the 4th. A lot of cool fireworks and things like that. So yeah, it's a big deal if you're here in the United States.
Yeah, just a good time. Gives you some nostalgia. Ain't nothing like it.
Nostalgia.
Another 4th of July story was I was playing RuneScape, Jacob, and I think I was trying to fight Jad, trying to get a fire cape. And
On the 4th of July.
oh yeah, and back then you could, I don't know if you can still do it, maybe it's a glitch, but you could like log out and then log back in on whatever level you were. I think.
Yeah. You could log out at the end of each round if you timed it right. You could log back in and continue.
Yeah. Well, I did that at like round 55 or something. I was like, all right, I'm gonna go outside, watch some fireworks, and I went outside, watched fireworks. Came back in like 2 rounds later, or no, I got to Jad and I got one shot.
Oh my!
That's the one I was like, what is that? And the magic thing just destroyed me. So,
well, my 4th of July story isn't as wholesome, I guess. It's more terrifying. Did your brother ever used to chase you around with bottle rockets?
No, you should chase me with a paintball gun.
Well, that's probably worse. Yeah, I remember my older brother and some of his buddies firing bottle rockets at us, which in hindsight is incredibly dangerous. But I mean, they probably wouldn't have done much. But I've also been hit in the face with a firework before that didn't explode. If it did, it would have been way worse. I don't know if that was, I think that was on New Year's though. I don't think that was on the 4th. And that was an accident. That it like fell off the perch that we had it on and it like shot towards me instead of going vertical.
Oh my.
which could have been really bad because it did hit me in the
Yeah.
face, but it didn't. It didn't burn me. It didn't explode. If it had exploded, like I said, it would have been way worse. But those are the memories that come to mind. There were a few others that are much more positive, but there's more stereotypical, barbecue kind of thing with the family.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, hopefully this year we just have a nice, quiet, enjoyable Independence Day.
I agree. You know, the fireworks story, my brother never did that to me, but one day he was like, I hesitate to say babysit because this kid was like 14 and my brother was like 20. But he was the brother of my brother's friend. So they knew each other and they were watching them and whatnot. Anyway, we went over to their house and the parents, I don't know where the parents were. That's what the reason he was watching. I wasn't. I was just there. But they got bottle rockets. We're just like having a bottle rocket war. And my brother said, "Stay inside. This is dangerous." I was like, "Okay." I thought, how stupid is this?
Bottle rocket war. Yeah, no, I probably wouldn't have done anything. And I realized that I made my brother sound like kind of a jerk of sorts, but no, he's awesome, and we were just being stupid as kids. But yeah,
If you have an older brother, you would understand.
yeah, I mean, growing up with two brothers, yeah, we were constantly figuring out a way to
It's a
torment the
war.
other. It's kind of like your job, basically.
Yeah, it's a war out there. Another bottle rocket thing similar to yours coming towards you. This is terrible, but you remember in Toy Story where the kid Sid ties the toy to the bottle rocket?
Oh yeah.
Well, I wanted to do that, so I got a little Lego character, and I like tied them and taped them to a bottle rocket. It was like that big of a bottle rocket, so it was a big one. Little did I know, and little did we think that it was going to adjust how it flies. So the minute we lit it, we ran back towards our house. It went up like this, Jacob, and then it went. It like flew right at us, and then it went.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Was anybody hurt?
No, I didn't make it. It exploded before it got to us, but we're like, oh, we like spread. You know that front door, the front of the house right there.
Yeah.
The sidewalk. It was right. We were standing right there. I was like, we're like, oh, we ran.
Oh my god, dude!
And I found the Lego character the next day. The pieces were all over the place. It was awesome, but it could have been even worse.
Well, first of all, he didn't strap into a bottle rocket. Remember, it was the big one. I don't know how on earth a 10, 11-year-old child gets a hold of a firework like that, but, hey, it's a movie, right?
Well, here's the worst part. My family knew I was doing it.
Oh, my God.
I was like, hold on, I want to tie this to see what it will do. I'm like, okay.
That's funny.
We did it. And that's why they have Darwinism moments, That was one of them. And I failed.
Well, speaking of toy mutilation, one story that stands out in my mind was my brother one time threw, I think, a tennis ball or something. We were kind of bowling with our action figures, so we would stand them up, and we had like a tennis ball, I think is what it was, and we would like try to throw it in weird ways, like sidearm or something, and knock them all down.
Yeah.
Well, my little brother had this Batman X type action figure that was kind of small, and it was like his favorite toy. And my older brother thought it would be fun to put that as like the lead pin, so to speak.
Yeah.
And move everything else out of the way. Since it was smaller, it was a harder target to hit. Well, he throws this tennis ball as hard as he can, after assuring my little brother that this wouldn't hurt the toy at all. It hits the toy perfectly, and I kid you not, like the toy just explodes. Its head goes up, its arms go out, and its legs go out. It just literally explodes, and we find pieces of it everywhere. I'll never ever forget that. I was laughing so hard, but my little brother was obviously very upset about that. But the chances of him actually hitting it were small, and then the chances of it exploding, we thought were small, but probably not, given how hard he threw it. But man, that was funny. Oh man,
I wish I could have seen that.
the look on my little brother's face was priceless. No.
You remember? You remember the cartoon Zoids?
Yeah, I do.
Uh, I had a friend come over. I think it was third grade. What was the white tiger Zoid thing? It was like the mascot of the series. You know what I'm talking about?
I know I can like visualize what it was, but I don't know what they called them.
I forgot its name. I had a little one that was put together, and then he had one where you like actually built it. You know,
Mhm.
like the old Gundams, but not that. It was like the old Gundams, but it wasn't as I don't know how to explain it. So his was like this giant one that he built, and mine was like this little action figure one, and mine had a little button on it where you could press the button and the claw would come up, go like that. And one day we're like, "Hey, let's have a Zoid battle," because in third grade you battle action figures. Wow, I remember he had his. He was like, "Oh," I went, "Ah," and I pressed the button, and I hit one of the arms on the Zoids, and it just went and fell off. It was like, "Dude, you broke my Zoid."
Oh no.
I was like, "Well, I won." So it just fell off. I didn't feel
Oh.
bad either. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, it's hard because whenever in the moment it's upsetting, but it is hilarious. So you're trying to like be a good person and contain your laughter, but also at the same time you can't. So
No, I didn't contain my laughter. You know why? Because this guy, he would laugh if you fell on your bike or skateboard. He
oh,
would
okay.
laugh at you, and I'd be
Well,
like,
then he
"Why are you
deserved it
laughing?"
then.
I say, "Why are you laughing?" He's like, "Oh, I'm not laughing at you. I just find it funny when people crash and burn." I'm like,
Oh my! I mean, you have to make sure people are okay first. I mean, I'll
"Well,
laugh
he
at someone
didn't.
wiping out, but they have
He
to be
never
okay
did.
first. Like,
He was a
that's sort of the rule.
jerk."
Are you okay?
So
Okay, good. All right. Good.
my laughter was not contained at that moment. I was like, "Yeah, I won." So those are good times. All this happens in the summertime. I guess the whole point of this conversation about the fourth is the summertime is awesome.
I hate the summertime. I hate the summertime. I used to love it, obviously, when we were in grade school, but now as an adult, I just cannot stand it. It's too hot to go outside, so you can't really do much of anything. And it's, I mean, unless you're going to the beach or something, which is like 1, maybe 2 weeks out of the whole summer.
Yeah. Well, since I teach in school, it's kind of like I'm in grade school. So when summer comes, I'm
Well,
like, yeah. Or
some
as
of
Voice
us don't.
Critical, woo!
Some of us don't get paid throughout the summer to not be at school. So
And that's something. How?
I'm sure if my company gave me the summer off, I would feel the same as summer about, or the same about summer as you do.
Well, I mean, I will say this. I do love the fall if it's actually fall, because down here in Alabama, we don't really have fall. But when it's actually fall, I do enjoy the fall because it's not hot, but it's not cold. It's like in between. And there's something about those days. Yeah, even with school, coming home from school, I have nostalgia about it. Coming home from school, doing my homework, and then watching my cartoons, playing my games, all that stuff. And now as an adult, I still do that, and it's football season.
I was about to say, I love the
So
fall for football season. I
yeah,
mean, the weather is getting colder. Although, to be fair, down here, at least in the far southeast, it doesn't get cold really until about December.
yeah, for like
I
two
mean, you
weeks.
have your cold stretches for like a few days, maybe, but then it gets right back up to the mid 80s again, and it kind of. I mean, I'd rather deal with that than all the snow if you were like way up north, but still.
I mean, we've had 80-degree weather on Christmas before. So
Oh yeah. I mean, I have never seen a white Christmas ever.
I haven't seen a white Christmas, but I mean, I have seen snow. It's snowed more than Auburn than my entire life down
I,
here.
honestly, I can remember 2 snow days my entire life. One was in Auburn, and then we had one in February when we were in Dothan. That was
Yeah,
like a full day off of school. It was like an actual traditional snow day.
yeah,
And by that afternoon, all the snow was gone. So,
yeah. I
I
remember
mean,
those days.
We don't really have that down here. So whenever I hear people from the northern part of the country or from Europe, for example, talk about the snow, it just doesn't really resonate with me because I haven't ever experienced it. But from what I understand, it's a huge pain in the butt.
Yeah, I don't like snow that much because when I was in Auburn, I think it snowed twice when I was in Auburn, Jacob.
Did it stick though?
Regardless,
I mean, I remember once it stuck because I made my first snowball.
yeah, well, that's the one. That's the one when I went outside at night. And somebody made a mini snowman on their car. It was like, that day it stuck, but I hated it because you would walk in the snow. Okay, it's cool, but when you get the snow would stick to your shoes and you get inside and start melting, and now you're getting wet all over the place.
Yeah, and I don't think the snow that we get is like traditional fluffy snow. It was just more of, I mean, it was more of ice,
Frozen
really.
ice,
Yeah, than anything. It wasn't like, it
and the
wasn't what I would imagine snow up north is that people get on a consistent basis.
yeah, and the roads iced. You know that Publix over there by where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I went there that evening after it snowed, and the roads had iced, and I skidded a little bit. It was kind of scary.
Yeah, yeah, you have to be super careful.
So yeah, I don't mind not having snow, but the fall's great. Football, basketball starts crank back up
Yeah,
again.
around October, I think.
Yeah, you got U.S. Open and Wimbledon, I believe.
And you
During
have all
those
the
times.
best holidays as well: Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. It's all located. And as we mentioned, did we talk about this last week? I think it's kind of all running together. But we talked about how in the fall, traditionally, is when all the big heavy hitters as far as games would come out.
Yeah, that is
So
true.
whenever we were younger, like Pokemon used to come out in like November.
Yeah, every time a report card would come out and it'd be bad. So
Yeah, parents would take away the games, hide the controllers, hide the keyboard if they ever did that. I remember one time they hid the keyboard from us.
oh man, but yeah, the fall always has the heavy hitters, and this year, as we mentioned last week, we got some heavy hitters coming up.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So check out last week's episode if you missed it. And also, since we're on that topic, thank you to everyone who went and checked out our YouTube video. We are very excited to be on the platform. It's going to take a bit of time to accumulate the audience that we have on the audio side, but we're more than willing to, be patient with that. Put our content out there, and over time, I think hopefully we'll have a crossover between audiences, and we're excited about it. We're trying our best to perfect the format, so it's going to take us a few weeks, like I mentioned before, to kind of get all the settings correct, all of the editorial changes that are required for video format. So we're working towards that, as I mentioned. But thank you again for everyone who supported, subscribed, and is following us on that platform. We're very excited about it.
and I've also met a special package. Yeah, it's been on my mind ever since we started. But yeah, YouTube's awesome.
Yep.
Um, what was I about? There's something I had, Jacob. I don't remember.
Yeah, maybe
But
it'll come back to you here in a moment.
perhaps. Um, a little sidebar action here. This past about week and a half, 2 weeks. I don't know. We've had that OceanGate submarine thing. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, I was following the story as the world was, I guess, whenever their fate was undetermined. Unfortunately, I think by Wednesday, I started to think that the worst had happened. And then I think we got confirmation the next day. So, obviously it's a tragedy. Obviously it's very sad. But you know, I think the media has done a good job at painting the captains and the people on board as not taking it very seriously. And I have a hard time believing that. But the way the sub was constructed, you have to wonder. I mean, did they have successful voyages at those depths before?
I wonder if they even use the same sub.
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't imagine they'd have just a whole fleet of these things, but maybe they did. I haven't looked too much into it, I must confess, but from what I saw, people were just kind of, that was their whole point, was that the sub wasn't set to any kind of standard, and therefore this sort of outcome seemed pretty likely. But
Yeah, I believe they confirmed it imploded,
mm,
which I know it's still awful, but at least they didn't suffer, you know.
right.
But that's crazy. I have a fear of the depth. Thalassophobia. I think I've mentioned it before on the podcast.
Hmm.
So when I see dark water, I'm not going in there.
Oh, I
I don't.
agree with you. I was actually having a conversation with my wife about this a few days ago, where we were talking about how you obviously have to have some amount of risk when you're traversing the unknown, right? The people
Yeah,
who mapped Alaska, or not Alaska, excuse me, Antarctica, for example, there is a huge amount of risk involved in that. The
yeah,
same with going to the moon. However, the ocean depths for me are something a bit different, because when you're so far below the surface, all of the sudden, and I mean, maybe not in the part of the ocean where they were, I'm sure there's, biodiversity all over the depths. So I may be inaccurate in saying this, but just the idea of like a giant squid just like appearing out of the abyss or something, or
yeah,
a sperm whale, for example, something massive that just swims right by your tiny little submersible. You're not going to
yeah.
get that on the edge of the atmosphere. You're not going to get that on the moon, for example. I mean, there's a lot of other things to be worried about, of course, but like, I don't know, just the idea of massive creatures inhabiting the same space as you, to me, is very off-putting, and I just would not want to. I wouldn't want to do it.
Like Cthulhu, he's down there.
Well, we don't know. I guess it's the
Yeah,
my big hangup about it is we really don't know what's down there. We might have a pretty good idea, but
Megalodon. I
the
saw it.
Meg. Shut up.
I tried to find that movie the other day on Netflix. It's not on there. I was like, no. But I saw a video comparing like tallest places on Earth to the depths of the sea,
Mm-hmm.
and they had like Mount Everest. I don't know how to explain the video, but it was like going down in terms of sea level, and it got to Mount Everest, and then it just kept going deeper and deeper. I thought, oh my gracious, I would not, I would not want to go down there because,
No.
like you said, you don't know what's down there. Like that weird squid thing that looks like an alien. Have you seen that?
Yeah. I have. Mm-hmm.
I forgot what is the name for it. They named it. But seeing that will be like, yeah, I'm good.
And there's no way to just abort mission, right? There's no way to just get to the surface quickly. It takes hours and hours and hours and hours and hours just to dive down
Yeah,
to those depths. I mean, it's not like you can just, if you're a pilot, you can just press the eject button, if you're flying in with some kind of jet or something. If you're in a submersible, you have to go through the procedures to safely ascend to the surface, and
yeah.
that takes a lot of time and skill, and it's just not for me. It's just not for me. Now, they weren't going to the abyss, but certainly they were going far. And
Well, it's 13,000 feet deep,
yeah, I mean,
the Titanic. So that's, to me, that's the abyss. I can't see down there.
well, I guess depending on how you define it, but yeah, sure,
I
close
mean,
enough, right?
if you see footage from like previous adventures down there, it's dark. It's creepy looking. I mean, I know
Oh
it's a
yeah,
boat
yeah.
under the sea, but I don't care. There's ghosts and stuff down there.
Well, I mean, I enjoy watching a lot of documentaries, a lot of nature documentaries that have gone to these depths before.
Yeah,
And for example, when they've done it, even in like the Arctic Sea, when they've gone really far down trying to find like Greenland sharks or something, like they just literally appear out of nowhere,
yeah, and
and
out of the darkness.
and then they just disappear again. I'm just like, you know what, y'all can keep it. I'm good.
There's a guy I saw on YouTube. I cannot remember what it was, but he scuba dives at night,
Hmm.
and he was underwater, and he says, "Watch this." shark come out of the blue or out of the darkness, and he's not even in a cage, Jacob. He's just scuba diving at night, and you see the camera looking forward or whatnot, and out of it just pops into frame a massive shark, and you can see its teeth. I'm like, oh my lord, I would pass out, and then I'd be eaten. But I'd rather be asleep and
Yeah,
eating than.
yeah. Well, it kind of reminded me of one time when we were at the beach. They had these. I don't know what time of year it was, but it was like a stingray migration was taking place. So
Yeah,
you could see what looked like just a cloud underwater moving, but it was just a ton of
yeah,
different stingrays or something. And it wasn't very smart, at least in hindsight, because a mutual friend of ours,
I think I know. Yeah,
we
I
went
think I got a
out
story
there
too.
and got basically in front of these clouds of stingray. And whenever they would get to us, it was like parting the Red Sea. They would just like swim all around us, which again, probably wasn't that smart. The water was a bit murky too, and we were probably where it was around 10 to 12 feet deep. We were past the second sandbar.
Oh my lord.
So again, not very smart in hindsight. But the point of the story is it was very murky, as I mentioned. So we would get underwater. We would go to as far down as we could when we would see them coming. And literally, they'd have to get within like 2 or 3 feet of us before they'd see us, and then they would part. But it was just the eeriest thing to see how, well, the lack of visibility we had
Yeah.
in what was, I mean, it was murky, as I mentioned, but it wasn't that murky,
Yeah.
and it was in the middle of the day, so I didn't think we would have that low of visibility, but we certainly did, and we certainly could have gotten hurt. I don't I mean,
Yeah.
maybe they were manta rays and they didn't have stingers, but I would think they wouldn't be that small. Definitely
Well,
looked like a stingray to me, but
the same mutual friend, um, we were at the beach, and we weren't that deep. Well, we did go that deep a few times, but I forgot. I don't know. I found a rock like underwater,
mhm.
and I was standing. I was like, "Look, I'm standing on this rock." And as I stood there, and he was close by, like three stingrays just swam right by us. I was like, "Oh!" And I thought I was about to lose my leg or get cut or something, and it scared the poop out of me. I was like, "Oh my
I mean,
goodness!"
you absolutely have to respect them. I mean, the
Yeah,
sting, I've heard people say, is excruciatingly painful. So,
that's when I became. I realized I had fear of the deep or whatnot. Was when I went to the beach with him. We had gone out to like past the second sandbar or whatnot, like you're saying, and we had goggles. When we went, I don't know if y'all did this. We always looked for shells underwater.
yeah, we would do that too. Yeah.
Yeah, and we got out there, and I had the goggles, and I was like, I'm gonna swim to the bottom. And like you said, it was 12, 13 feet deep. I swam all the way to the bottom. It got really cold down there
Yeah, it
because
does. Yeah, it
it's
does.
just way down there. There was nothing on the bottom. And I was like, "Ooh." And I remember looking up straight ahead of me, and it was just dark. And that's when I realized I don't want to be out here right now.
Brantley stared into the void, and the void stared back.
It stared back. That's a good sword. And I became callous that day. But no, I did. It freaked me out. So I swam back to the top. I was like, I'm gonna go head towards shore. That's
Yeah,
what
and
I did.
I sympathize with that. I've had the exact same. You just sort of like internally panic for a moment because
Yeah,
you recognize that what if all of a sudden, like an 8 foot bull shark just like appeared out of the
yeah.
out of
And
the
bull
den? Like
sharks are
what?
aggressive.
Yeah, like what would I do? I'd have absolutely no defense
None, because
in
it's not
this
like we're
moment.
swimming out there with spears or whatnot.
Yeah, I mean,
you
even
know.
if you're armed, still, like what would you do?
Well, if you're armed, you're slowed down by the water, so you can't swing as fast. A gun's not going to work because the bullet's just gonna. It's not going to go far because the water's going to slow it down. It's that dense. So taking a gun to the ocean is pointless because one, there's going to be malfunctions from all the water. Two, even
Yeah,
if you get it to fire, if the gunpowder doesn't get wet inside the bullet somehow, which more than likely will. If you get it to fire, it's not going to go far because of the density. They've done it on, I don't know if it was Mythbusters, but there's some video I saw where it shows bullets not going far at all in water. And then if you have like a spear, and who wants to swim in the ocean with a spear or like a sword,
well, you
or
could do
something.
like a spear gun or something like that, right? That's pretty popular, spear gun fishing.
Yeah, you could do that. But are you going to be swimming in the middle of the ocean with a spear gun?
No, I mean, why would you do that?
Yeah. If you have a knife, you're going to have to stab it a million times. And again, you're being slowed down by the density of the water. You're just out of your element.
Exactly.
You're literally, you're in a bad spot. So
yeah, and I mean, as someone who is afraid of sharks, I think everybody to some extent is. I've always said, always advocated on behalf of the shark. Like, I'm not frustrated or mad at the potential of being attacked because I'm someone who believes in the statistics, and they're there's a very, very, very small chance of you even encountering one, let alone being attacked by one. And I would never advocate for someone to go out there and hunt them or persecute them for just feeding or just trying to live. Like, I don't know. I've always been more of the advocate of the shark, but just suffice it to say that in deep water in general, I think just the mystery of not knowing what's below me is scary enough. Like, it doesn't have to be a shark. It could be, something even more scary, in my opinion, like a box jellyfish, or even, like a man o' war or something, like something venomous is scary.
Yeah.
Like, the ocean in and of itself is just kind of a frightening place. So
with that same friend, I was diving under, and all these fish around me. It was cool. I was like, I got my little school of fish, and they're like swimming with me and whatnot. I was like, yeah. And then they all took off. I was like, where'd they go? And I turned to look up at the surface, and above me, it wasn't big, but it was a jellyfish. And I was like, they led me to a trap. I swam off. It was a small one, but
if you've ever been stung by any type of jellyfish, it hurts. It burns.
Oh, I don't want to.
It is not pleasant at all. Would not recommend.
Yeah, the fear of the depth that's why when people are swimming lakes, I'm like, you're insane. I can't see anything out there. It's murky, but not because of the depth, but just because of all the mud and crap. I don't get it.
We've talked about this before too, though. Like, even in a swimming pool.
Yes.
If the light gets cut off in a swimming pool and there's no one around, and I'm just in like 9 or 10 foot deep water, and there's it's just dark around me, I want to get out. I want to go to the ladder or wherever and get out of the water as quickly as possible, because it just freaks me out. I have no idea why.
As I'm climbing out of that ladder, I get the fear that something's there about to get me.
Dude.
Man. I'll tell you one thing. I went to Lake Eufaula one time. That's a lake here in Alabama. For those who aren't familiar, I went tubing with a friend in elementary school. And, it's dark out there. It's murky, and there's alligators out there. And I would remember falling off the raft or tube, and I would swim as fast as I could, Jacob. And every time I climbed out of the water, I got super scared because I thought, I'm about to get eaten.
One thing about Lake Eufaula, I just got to mention this. I don't know if it was my dad. It sounds like something he would have told me, or maybe my older brother, but they convinced me that there were no alligators in that water because it was a man-made lake. There's no way there's no alligators in that water. And I thought, even as a young child, that was a bit odd, but there absolutely are. There has to be.
I've seen them. Yeah, I have seen them. They swim by a boat. And I was
tubing or anything like that in water. Alligators, kind of docile.
They're not as common in Lake Eufaula. They're not like the Everglades, would I say, but they're still there. They are in that water. So,
well, I'll stick to
I've seen them. I have actually seen them, so I can confirm, Jacob, that there are alligators in that water.
I will stick to the swimming pools.
And another part of that water where we were tubing, the deeper parts I was afraid of because I didn't know. but I was more comfortable falling off there. But we went to this area where it was like the guy was like, "Yeah, it's only 6 feet deep here," but it was dark, so I couldn't see. And I remember being on this was on a skin board or boarding or something. I forgot what it's
Like
called.
knee boarding, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. And I remember holding it because I didn't hold it like this. I just put it on the thing and rode it because I was a scaredy cat. I remember when we went over that part, I held on for dear life because I thought if I fall here, there's definitely alligators because of how shallow.
Could have been.
And I was terrified. And then we got out of that part, and I was like, oh, thank goodness I'm safe.
I mean, if the difference is alligators, I think we've actually talked about this before on a previous episode, but a lot more docile than crocodiles. Crocodiles, you wouldn't see zero tubers or
Yeah.
zero skiers or wakeboarders or whatever. You just
You
wouldn't
don't
see
see
it,
them doing it in Australia. I tell you
or
that.
in Africa, for that matter.
Yeah. Oh yeah, anacondas down there or out there. Well, actually, aren't anacondas in South America?
South America, yeah, but even still, 30-foot anaconda swims by you. I don't think you're staying in that water very long.
Oh no, you're gonna be eat. You can't escape it. You're in it. I'd be more afraid of an anaconda than an alligator because
Really?
I don't know, man. Because all the anaconda has to do is wrap around you.
Well, yeah, but I mean, did you see the clips from Forrest Galante where he was swimming with the green anacondas in South Africa or South America? Excuse me.
Well, he's an idiot. I'm kidding.
Like he's literally, the anaconda is swimming and he's right beside it, just kind of like swimming alongside of it. And it's not a 30-footer. I think that was one of the larger ones ever recorded, but it was over 20 feet long.
Well, I saw the movie Anaconda, so changed my perspective, which he's talked about, said it's fake.
Oh, yeah, yeah. See this movie? See this movie? It's fake.
Fake! I hate fake anaconda.
I would much rather, I'd rather encounter none. And I can increase my probability of encountering none by not getting in the water. So
that is true.
Seems like a pretty good strategy to me.
Yeah, I mean, don't be stupid. I used to have nightmares, and they wouldn't be of being in dark water. They would be in clear blue ocean water. But in the nightmares, when I would look below me, way down at the bottom, there'd be like a shark or something. And the fear was I can see it, and there's nothing I can do. And that was the nightmare.
Mm.
I hated those dreams, man.
You know, interestingly enough, and I don't know why I remember this, but Magnus Carlsen once said in an interview, he was asked what his greatest fear was or something, and he said being eaten by a large fish at sea. So I guess he implied a shark. So
that is terrifying. What do you do?
Yeah, pretty scary. I think that would be a lot of people's top 5.
Well, that or an alligator, crocodile. But I don't know. Being eaten by an anaconda would be awful because it's just crushing you as it's putting its mouth around your head.
I don't know if an anaconda would even try to eat a person though.
They've eaten small children in villages.
Well, small children is one thing, but like a full-grown adult.
I don't care, Jacob. I don't want to see you.
Well, then don't go to South America.
I don't have any plans.
Well, to cancel my plans, you know.
Speaking of Titanic, I've been doing a lot of research. Well, I say a lot of research, just watching a few videos here and there about the Titanic. And obviously it's a horrible thing. But that's another instance of people, this is another fear of mine, floating in dark water at night and not being able to see anything. You're just floating there. You can't see a thing.
Like, what if you were on a raft or something, you had just escaped a sunken ship or a sinking ship, and all that's between you and the ocean is like that, just a few inches of that rubber inflatable?
I'd still feel better than being in the water.
Well, of course you would be, but just when you really think about it, you know, that's just, what's that going to do against any predator or anything else. I mean, it does make you feel better. It's like when you're scared at night and you get under the covers or something when you were a kid. Like it makes you feel better, even
Well,
though
they can't get me under there.
yeah, exactly. It's like it doesn't really. But anyway, to your point, like, is that what you're referring to? Or are you referring to like in a submersible? Or
Either.
okay.
Just floating there in water, like you're holding onto a plank and floating.
Oh,
in the water.
I see. Okay.
That to me is. I would rather be in the raft, but either one, I don't care.
Rather be on that dresser.
On top of the dresser, yeah, than
If-
hanging off
if-
of it in the
I don't
water.
remember if that's what they got on in the movie. It might have been like a door or something, but
Oh yeah, where Jack's just hanging there.
yeah.
That's terrible. Stupid though.
I just think of the Family Guy bit where he's like drowning and then he comes back and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna be fine." What are you talking about? I'm actually in a committed relationship, so I'm sorry to say something like that. I can't remember.
But another thing, how horrible is it? Well, before I go to that, I want to finish off the floating in water. In World War II, there were people. The ships would sink in the Pacific where they're heavily infested with sharks, and soldiers give stories that were there, like they and a friend or somebody would be on a plank floating in the water, and they would go to sleep, which I don't know how you go to sleep in the middle of the ocean floating, but and they'd wake up the next morning and that person would be gone because like a shark or something got them.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think we've mentioned that before when we were talking about the Bermuda Triangle or something like that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Which is interesting because that's in a completely different ocean and a completely different part of the world. But the point was made that what happens to the sailors and stuff who disappear there versus the Pacific, and we brought up shark attacks like that. So yeah, I mean it's. Yeah. But you also have to wonder if that happened, like, why wasn't the other person taken as well? Like, I always thought, like, who's to say that the friend just didn't drown from exhaustion or something? Like, how is your friend going to be getting chomped on by, like, a oceanic white tip or something, and you're just sitting there 3 feet away from it, sleeping like a baby? Like, I don't know. I just feel like...
Well, it would be like those like like the movies, Jacob. It'd be like in the movies where they're all swimming, all of a sudden they turn around, one person's gone. They would just get taken, and you wouldn't even know. That's how I pictured it.
Maybe
you make a valid point. I don't know.
I'm not to say that some of them weren't eaten by sharks, but I don't know if that story holds any water. No pun intended.
That's something. But back to the Titanic. Imagine being in one of those life rafts, and you can hear the screaming.
You can hear it.
And you can rise up.
That would be truly awful.
People are just drowning, and so that's got to be awful. And there's a video on YouTube I saw yesterday. The movie, James Cameron's movie, they showed the lights or whatnot on the ship, and someone made a comparison where they said this is what it would actually look like because the lights were turned up for the movie, obviously for effect, and that it was a moonless night, so it shows the lights, and it was already pretty dark with those lights from the ship, and then it cuts the lights out because when the ship split in half, the lights cut out. It showed that, and it was literally just pitch black, and they're just sitting on those ramps or those life rafts. And
if you ever find yourself in Tennessee, they have I think in Gatlinburg, maybe Pigeon Forge, they have a museum based on the Titanic. And when you go in, they give you a card that gives you, like, you basically play the role of a passenger who went on board. And I think it's like 3 or 4 pages, and you're not supposed to go all the way through it. Like each part of the museum, you're supposed to undo another page and learn more about your character. And then at the end, on the final page, it tells you if you survived or not, if that person actually survived or not. I think I was...
That's creepy.
Yeah, I don't know why they decided to market it that way, but I think I did. I know I survived, but I think I was... like a lowly peasant almost. Like I don't think I was a first class by any means. But they have
Come
one
die on the
section.
Titanic.
Yeah. They had one section where you could feel how cold the water was. They kind of recreated that in the museum. Suffice it to say, it was really, really, really cold.
Well,
Like
yeah,
you try to hold your hand in there for about 30 seconds. It's really hard to do. I mean, it is really hard to do. So,
yeah, that's what a lot of people die from. The
yep.
cold shock.
Hypothermia.
Yeah, which is better than getting eaten, I guess.
Yeah, probably. But I mean, in that part of the ocean, I don't really know how many predators you would have come into contact with. But
I was thinking the same thing since it's so cold. But even still, you're floating in the dark, like in the actual dark.
yeah,
There's no sun. It's It's absolutely positive. I mean, absolutely terrifying, Jacob.
yep. Would have been a horrendous way to go. That is for sure.
Did you know it had two other ships that were called like the sister ships of the Titanic?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
One was called the Britannic, which sunk in 1915 from a German mine in the water. But only 31 people died. Well, still a lot of people. 31 people died from that. And then the other one was the Olympic, which didn't sink. The only one that didn't sink. So I thought it was very, and they all look almost identical.
I mean, the Titanic, obviously, it's one of the most historically documented events in history as far as, naval history. But they said it was unsinkable, right? That was sort of the famous marketing that went on with that ship. And history is nothing but ironic, or nothing if ironic. So, I mean, it's,
Well, I'll say this. If I'm about to do something, some type of thing, and people are like, oh, this thing, there's no chance that this will happen. I'm like, all right, there's a chance it's going to happen.
yeah, for
We've
sure.
seen through history. No chance this will sink. And then it's, I did read that if they would have hit the iceberg dead on, it wouldn't have sunk. But since they tried to avoid it, it hit the side, which opened up compartments, which made it sink. But I did read that if they would have just hit it dead on, it wouldn't have sunk.
I saw a quote one time that featured the Titanic that I don't know why, but it resonated with me. I guess I found it kind of like dark humor. But they said something like, life is all about perspective. And then it showed the Titanic and it said, to the lobsters in the kitchen, this was seen as a miracle. And I was thinking, I'm like, huh, isn't that something? I guess that's true. I don't I don't know if I can get on board with that, but
It's a miracle.
Can you imagine? Like, that was on the mini that night. Then that happens. You're never gonna believe this, dude. We're getting out of here, dude.
We're free. Imagine the one lobster about to be put in the bowl, and then
yeah, then it like shakes and he comes flying off. Oh my gosh.
Well, there's a half glass full for everybody.
I suppose so. Life is all about perspective.
That's terrible.
Isn't it though? Isn't that something?
That's a good one, though. That's a good one. Yeah, I'm not ashamed for laughing at that.
Yeah, it's not too soon or anything. It's over 100 years ago, so.
Yeah, well, yeah, 111 years ago.
Yeah. Someone would comment, too soon, guys.
Hey, at least they're commenting.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we have a section in the format for our videos or the display for a question of the day. I don't know what that will be just yet, but maybe we can come up with something creative and put that there. So whatever it turns out to be, feel free to let us know in the comments below. Also, if you're listening on our audio directories, feel free to follow our show, give us a rating and a review. We greatly appreciate those who take the time to do that for us. And I guess since we're at the hour mark, Brent, I don't really have anything else to plug. Is there something else you wanted to touch on real quick, or?
No, just we're finally there on YouTube. I'm sorry it took us a little while, but we're there. We're back. Season 2 is underway, and we are excited. So we look forward to everybody who stops by either through YouTube or through podcast format streaming services. And yeah, it's gonna be a good year.
Yeah, and we're basically on every major directory. So if you're having a hard time finding us on, like Pandora, for example, we're on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and several others. Obviously, Apple Podcast. So if you can find us there, if that's a more convenient format for you, or if you're just enjoying the YouTube comment or content, we're grateful that you're there as well. So just subscribe to the channel, like our video, and comment. Love the interaction. And as always, we will see you next week.
Peace.